All right, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome Hall of Fame trainer Jack Van Berg. Jack, it is not only an honor and a privilege to sit next to you for the second year for Dawn at Oaklawn, but I am honored to call you a friend for the last 20 years.
Well, let's get not carried away about these years, will you, please? They don't fun, but it's an honor to be with you, Nancy, and you do such a tremendous job for
Thank you.
Oaklawn Park, and you folks in here in Hot Springs and surrounding area to have a racetrack like this in your area is a good thing. I've raced from one end of the country to the other, and this is still the track that runs it like it was in the old days. I'll tell you that. They come here, they have fun, they don't rip you off, and the big crowds and everything and the enjoyment they have, you're blessed to have something like this in your area. So appreciate it when you're here. And a fine lady like this that can commentate and do all the things is a great thing for you. So anything I can do to help racing, I've always been happy to try to do.
Now, I just want to give a quick stat rundown of Jack. Started over 40,000 horses in your career, 6,464 wins. That's going to be an important number, and I'll tell you why shortly. Almost 5,500 seconds, just shy of 5,000 thirds, over 84 million in earnings.
Where'd it go?
I don't know. 79 years old. You grew up in a sale barn. He's a Nebraska native. Very proud of that. I know that. Son of a Hall of Fame trainer himself. And your second career was almost an auctioneer. And I've had the privilege of being a bid spotter for you on a couple of occasions. Can you auction something off real quick?
I will in a minute, but that was not my, well, it was about, no, I went to Omaha when I was 13 years old, when we had the first guy that trained back, Lynn Whiting's dad rode the horses, C-Note and Tetrashera, two great horses. Both of them were gray, and they raced at Long Acres, and they won the Long Acres Mile. And we had the guy, C.A. Tanner, that trained my father's first horses, was the trainer. And when he was in his 80s, and I was 13 years old, my dad would send me to Omaha with him because he couldn't remember what he did with the horse the day before. So I groomed the horses. And then when I was 15 and a half, I lied and got my trainer's license. But at the same time, I started auctioneering when I was about 17. And I'll tell you that story later, how I did that.
Now, a book was written, Jack from Grit to Glory. This is an amazing book. There are some phenomenal stories in this book. We actually discussed this book at length last year during Dawn at Oaklawn. Tell me how this actually came to be. Chris Katulak, who was a commentator, was a major, major factor about this.
Well, I made the mistake of going to California, and it was so nice. Bunker Hunt asked me to train horses for him, and a ship went to California to be out there, and I got out there in the weather, and it was cold, and I had horses in Detroit, New York, Chicago, and all over the country. And I was on an airplane every night going to my different outfits, because back in those days, you had to be at one of your outfits once a week or they wouldn't let you be trainer. So I got to California and the weather and everything and the good racing they had at that time out there. I stayed out there, and then I bought a ranch. But I'd have people from Hollywood and them places, and they'd come to me and they wanted to write a book about me. And I never felt comfortable with them because they like to put things in there that I didn't want in there, okay? I haven't been some saint or a preacher in my life, I can tell you that. But they want to put, and I wrote an article one day that Chris Katulak wrote, just a one-page article. So I just said to him, I said, Chris, would you be interested in writing my book? He said, give me 10 days to think about it. And he came back and he said, yeah, I would. The research that he did about my father leaving the farm and coming to Columbus, starting the sale barn and everything, and what he wrote in that book, and he did. And my sister passed away a couple years ago, Betty. Between her and I, we proofread everything. And she was not going to put anything in there that was bad. And one day I was telling him something and I cussed. And he wrote it down and he added it in there. And when she proofread it, she said, "We don't talk like that. You don't be putting that kind of stuff in the book." So I just used some cuss words or something when I was talking to him. So, but he did such a tremendous job of explaining everything. And I went to California and we did real well out there. And then I bought that ranch deal and I got in with some people that the only thing I ever did with lawyers, everything else I'd learned in my life was to do things on a handshake. It was the worst cheating I ever got in my life. They ruined my life. So, but he wrote the book, and it's been really things that he wrote in there that come up that I'd even forgot about. Some of the things I didn't even know about. That he interviewed people all over the country. So it was real well.
It is truly an amazing read. I think I actually teared up a couple times. You know, stories about your dad, stories about the Derby. I pointed out a horse earlier on the track that had the earmuffs on, made a reference to Gate Dancer. Tell us about that story, Jack.
Well, I had that horse Gate Dancer, and he was, everybody said he was a nut. He wasn't a nut.
He trained amazing.
I
Just
think
didn't run that way, right?
Steve Cawthon rode him at San Francisco when my son Timmy took him up there to run, and he horrified him because he's had so much talent, but he just did things he wanted to do. And Eddie Delahoussie's the one that told me, he said, "Jack," he said, "when this horse turns for home, I think he's looking up there listening to the crowd, you know." And I'd been down to Argentina and bought horses and around, and they always had ear muffs on them. Not muffs, but just ear covers. Well, I found out that it was for the bugs down there, so many bugs. But I figured when I was a kid, they wanted to put cotton in your ears when it was cold and you had an earache, and that'd just drive me crazy. They'd want to stick cotton in my ears. So I just developed a thing with a sponge that went right in the ear, and we put them on that horse, and it just made the difference. When you put those earmuffs on him, it just made the night and day. He was just easy going and everything. Well, then Eddie Delahoussie got embarrassed because we put the earmuffs on him so he wouldn't ride him. He said he looks like Bugs Bunny out there running around. So we put Cadero on him, and we won the Preakness with him and set a new track record. And this little horse that you see out here this morning belongs to Jerry Caroon. Probably helped save my life when I come from California. He's a complete idiot out here without those earmuffs on him. He just was all over the racetrack. You put them on him, and it just, I don't know what it does. It just, they're mild when you do it. And I got a filly I'm going to run next week. It's going to run with those earmuffs. Then when we first brought her over to the paddock without the earmuffs, she got wringing wet, just nervous. She comes here every day. She'll be out here after the break with the earmuffs galloping, and she's cool as a cucumber. So to me, if I had the lady that made them originally for me, I think I'd have them for every horse. That's what I think of them. They do something to them.
Now, that Preakness was also Jack's first classic win. Jack went on to become the first trainer to win 5,000 races. That happened on July 15th in 1987. Art Shandell at Arlington Park. And another thing to be very proud of amongst all of his accomplishments, he's got a band of disciples, as we like to call it, as they're also referenced in the book. Frankie Brothers, Hall of Famer Bill Mott, Wayne Catalano, Billy Gowan, Joe Pedalino, and a lot of those guys you still keep in contact with. Joe Pedalino is kind of his training buddy that he watches training with. Billy Gowan, who was here last year, they always keep in contact. And a lot of them still get a hold of you if they've got a question about something.
Well, Nancy, I was very fortunate. I had the best teacher in the world, my father. He was a genius. He was a perfectionist. If he told you to rub a leg 15 minutes, he didn't mean 13, he meant 15. And we used to have two old guys, two Polish fellows from Platte Center, Nebraska. and he'd set the alarm clock for 15 minutes and let him rub that leg. And when the alarm went off, Dad would walk down there and say, "Now put the bandage on," and set the alarm for the next leg. That's what he was. And I was very fortunate to have come up under him, and he'd teach me everything he knew, and he'd give you enough rope to hang yourself. So, and he was very strict. From the time I was 8 years old, I went to Detroit the day school was out, worked all summer, and I arrived back in Columbus the day before school started. But he had me working all the time, and it's probably a blessing that he did, because I was kind of an ornery kid and a little bit wild. So, but when he got done, and he always said, "Idle minds and idle hands make worthless children." So he'd keep you busy.
Now, another horse that you're very famous for was.
One of my disciples over there.
There you go. Kellen Gorder. Kellen Gorder. There's another
Alan
one.
Gorder, he worked for me.
Another.
I don't want to tell you what he did when him and Billy Gowan worked for me. I can't tell you
please
that
do.
in public.
Please do. You've opened the door now.
No, you could tell that. I never found that out till last year when they got to talking and laughing between themselves.
Was there alcohol involved?
Well, yeah. They give him a tranquilizer.
Another horse that you're very well known for, Jack, that also added to your mark on the map was 1987 Kentucky Derby winner Ali Sheba.
He was Nancy. That horse could. When we broke him at my farm in Kentucky, 5/8 mile track, you go once around that track, and we'd have 3 or 4 horses in a set, and he'd be 16th a mile in front of the rest of them, not trying to run off. My grandmother could have galloped him. That's how easy he was, how smart he was. But he was just, his stride was so great. And I'll tell you a little story about him. We had another filly called Starwood Sal I bought the same year at Kentucky for stall. And the first time I run her in Hollywood Park, Randy Romero rode her. And she's the only thing that even make Alasheba get out of a gallop, working. The rest of the 2-year-olds didn't even compare. So I run her, and she win by 10. I'll brush my hands off thinking how smart I am. I had him in the next day, his first start. I said, "If you think that one's good, wait till tomorrow." Well, we'd never let him run in the morning, just taking him easy, letting him develop. And the next day I run him, and he come lollygagging around there and finished 5th. I had to get on a plane going to Keeneland to the sales, and you talk about a man that was sick, grown man crying. I was so upset when he run 5th, and of course then he went on and had the entrapped epiglottis. We operated on that and took that out. It's like a membrane that goes over their epiglottis. Just like if you put a nylon hose over a couple of your fingers and hold them down, you got to go up there and take that off and slough it off. But he just had so much talent. If they'd have raced him as a 5-year-old, Nancy, nobody ever would have beat him, because he was developing and so smart, and he just did things. And it's just like my jockey in the Belmont. He should have won the Belmont. I think my jock vapor locked in there.
Yeah.
I could have put you on, Nancy, and rode better than Chris did that
That's
day.
a big statement. So, Jack, let me ask you this. So, the Eclipse Award in '84 is Outstanding Trainer, inducted into the Hall of Fame in '85. The Derby with Ali Sheba in '87. Those are some accomplishments that so many trainers, they dream of. What do you consider your top accomplishment?
Well, of course, if you talk to somebody training horses and they tell you they don't care whether they win the Kentucky Derby or not,
They're
don't
lying.
do any business with them, because they're a damn liar. I'll tell you that right now. They're lying. I mean, I still get goosebumps. I still get tears in my eyes when I watch that race. And I'm going to win another Derby. I may be going to be 80 next June, but I'm going to win a Derby before they put the grass sod over the top of me. I can tell you that. So, and my man, Mr. Chrome up there, if he'd get it off his pocketbook a little more, we'll win it quicker. So that's the best tell you. But
Sell that Ferrari, Jerry.
I met Jerry on the airplane coming back 5 years ago, I guess, and then 2 years ago, whenever I come back here, I met him, and he was like a lifesaver. We got horses. We've done good together, and it'd be nothing better to win a Derby for him.
So I was going to ask that. How did you two hook up? You met on an airplane?
sitting across from each other. I'll tell you the whole story. He has a brother named Scotty that was my daughter's best friend and always kind of looked after Tracy in Shreveport, and I never knew it. I met Jerry one time on an airplane sitting across the aisle, and we shot the breeze. And then the year that I come here, first year back, I'm coming into Hot Springs, and I'll be darned, I meet him again. And we visit, and he said, I got a horse, but it ain't doing no good. I'd like to get another one. I said, well, come to my barn the next morning and bring your checkbook. We'll have one for you. And we did. Started business together, and it's been on a handshake, and we've done, he's second leading owner here right now. And he gives me the devil sometime, I'll tell you that much, about spending too much money and this and that. But like I told him, how would you like to give $2-3 million and never win a race? You know, like a lot of these owners you see. So we're doing good, and we got some nice horses.
Well, it's very appropriate because both of your personalities are larger than life.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think I got a
And you
nicer
work
one than
well
he's
together.
got. I think I'm a little nicer than he's got. But he is, you know, we have fun together. We cook together. We go out to eat together. And of course, with my owners, I've always tell them everything about the horse. I let them learn as much as they want to, you know, as much as they want to know. I don't try to hide nothing. Most guys you go to, they don't even want to own it around the barn, you know.
Right.
And I've always wanted they're spending their money. I want them to feel part of it. So, but it was amazing, and we're together for a long time. Before I found out Scott and him, I never connected it for a long time that they were brothers. And so, but it's been a blessing. And of course, I trained for Dream Walking.
Yeah.
And the boy up Fort Smith, I got horses for him.
Now, Dream Walking, in case you don't know, the country, it's Toby Covell in the program, but you might know him as country superstar Toby Keith. Jack trains for him.
Let me tell you about that.
Can you give me some tickets?
His farm manager, Lyndon Branch, called me at Santa Anita and said, this guy wants to claim a horse. I want you to claim a horse for him. So, would you do it? Well, I had trained for Lyndon a long time ago, but it didn't sink in the day that he called me. And so I said, yeah, I'll do it. Well, I go in there looking for his name and under Dream Walking, you know. And I don't know it's Toby Keith from a load of hay. So I call this number back, and I get his sister that keeps all the books. And I said, Toby wants me to claim a horse. I don't know it's Toby Keith. I said, he wants me to claim a horse, and I don't have the paperwork. You got his number so I can call him? She said, we don't give his number out to anybody. So she said, but I'll have somebody call you. So that was the first one I claimed for him out there. But I didn't know who Toby Carvel was.
You didn't know who Toby Keith was?
No, I didn't know.
Jack.
Well, how many people you think here would know who Toby Carvel is?
Everybody knows who Toby Keith is.
Toby Keith, but his name is Toby Carvel.
Okay.
His real name is Toby Carvel, and that's who I was calling. I didn't realize it was Toby Keith, so that's how. But they don't hurry you with horses. They don't tell you what to do. And I said to him one day, I said, Toby, looks like to me you're running old folks' home. You got Kenny Smith, you got Kenny's dad Paul, you got me, you got Don Van Hamel.
Steve Asmussen.
Yeah, well, he ain't that old. Anyway, he's not up there in ancient history. Anyway, so he said, well, let me tell you something. I don't want no young ones. I want all old trainers. And I said, he's got like 140 brood mares. I said, you ever sell any yearlings? Nope. If I sold a yearling and win the Derby, I'd shoot myself. He said, so I ain't going to take that chance. And he said, I spent a fortune on these horses. And he said, I love them. I'm going to spend another fortune. He said, and they don't hurry you. Take all the time you want. Don't never ask you when they're going to run. If you run one, and like over at Remington when he's there most of the time, you run a horse and he runs bad, you're feeling bad, and he'll say, oh, don't worry, they'll run better next time. Don't worry about it. They're great people to train for.
Now, Jack left Southern California after many, many, many decades, returned here to the Midwest, and that was probably attributed to, I would say, Hollywood Park shutting down. possibly.
No, it was because I was broke. I'm gonna not lie to you.
Well, I was trying to,
They
soften
got.
that blow a little bit.
I
But
ain't gonna lie. I got in that ranch deal in California. It's in the book. Part of it is, it's truth is no. I should have had 40, 50 million, and when I got done, I was 2 million in lawyer fees, and they took everything.
Jack
with a
is
little portion,
very,
so
very blunt. And
I
the
don't.
chapter is called Failures in the book. A lot of people, especially in this industry, want to sugarcoat a lot of things. Jack is not one of those people. Now, this is your second full meet, right? Second
Huh?
full meet at Oaklawn? Back?
No,
Third?
this is the
Third full meet.
third year.
But 2015, last year, was your best year win-wise since 99 with 28 victories. What do you attribute that to?
What, 28 victories?
Yeah.
I got horses. I told a guy the other day.
But you had a lot
They
of
said
horses in Southern California when I was there.
I had them warm things. He give me horses that couldn't run. Give them to me. Well, I got ready to leave California. He said, I'll go give you some more horses. I said, no, I'm worn out. I don't want no more. So he wore me out. But in California, the same as Charlie Winningham, when he got old, they don't think you can. I don't text or Twitter, I might as well tell you. If you can't talk to me face to face, you ain't going to hear from me, I'll tell you that. There's nothing that irritates me anymore just going to a restaurant and a man and his wife and 4 kids sitting in there and they got them damn phones out. No conversation between them or anything.
Jack has Facebook, but it's not Jack.
I don't go for that. If you're going to talk to somebody, talk to them. And I was raised that way. If you tell somebody something, do it that way. Be that way. My dad, I'll tell you a little story. When I was graduated from high school, I was riding bulls and barebacks and rodeoing, and my dad wanted me to go to college. And I said, I don't want to go to college. I majored in woodworking, I'll tell you that, just to get out of school. So anyway, he said, I'll buy you a new car if you'll go. Just 1 year, try it. I'm going to tell you about my auctioneering, too. So anyway, he told Bob Irwin that his son's Ralph here. Bob worked for my dad from the time he was 15 till my dad passed away. He said, go downtown, Peter Casiba, they had horses, and he had the Oldsmobile dealership in Detroit. And so he said, go down and see if you can buy a 54 Oldsmobile. It was new, hard top. See if you can buy it for $1,800. So we go down there, and we get him down to $1,875. So we said we'd match him. Well, we lost the match. So Bob paid the $75 cash out of his pocket, and we got the car, and I got back to the racetrack, and Dad said, what'd you do? I said, we bought the car for $1,800. I told you to go see if you could buy it. I didn't tell you to buy it. So I said, well, I'll call him up and we'll cancel it. No, you don't go back on your word. You bought it, you go ahead. But that's the way my dad was. He never told you, to the day he died, he never told me I was a good horseman, a good auctioneer, or anything. You knew that he loved you and did things for you the way he did them, but he wouldn't brag on you. He might tell somebody else he's doing good, but he wouldn't tell you. But anyway, so I got the car and I went to University of Nebraska. And that year, and I got beat 2 points for all-around cowboy. And then I went to Colorado A&M. They had a rodeo team that traveled, so Dad had a friend of his out there. It was hard to get in that school, but I got in. And I got on the rodeo team, but also got on the dean's list. I had an academic dismissal after the first quarter. So I called my dad and I said, I called my mother. I waited till he left the house. And I said, I got my car and my clothes. I'm going to go get me a job somewhere. And she said, oh, don't worry about that. So he called that night to the house I lived in, and this lady and her husband, they loved me, and they thought, well, I was such a nice young man, I'd be up there sleeping, and she'd think I was up there studying. She told Dad how hard I worked studying and everything. It was a shame that happened to me. Anyway, the next morning, I was with my buddies partying that night. I called him, and he said, oh, don't feel bad about that. That can happen to anybody. Don't worry about that. I said, no. I said, I had 7 sisters and 1 brother ahead of me, and they were about all straight-A students. And the teachers kept telling me I was the black sheep of the family. So anyway, he said, go over to Sterling, Colorado, buy a couple loads of cattle, and come on home. here I'm 18 years old, 17 or 18, whatever I was, and buy 2 loads of cattle. So I went over there and bought 2 loads of cattle, and I bought 6 Shetland ponies over in the corner of Colorado and Wyoming, and that old rancher out there didn't know that that Shetland pony market had got real high and things were worth a lot. So I went home, 2 loads of cattle, made a lot of money, and Shetland ponies made good money. And so all the time growing up, I would go over to the ring. We lived there at the sale barn, and I'd turn the lights on and the microphone, and I'd practice auctioneering. So I'm home 2 weeks on a Saturday night at 10 o'clock, and down there waiting in the cow manure in the ring, chasing them things around. Come up here and auctioneer. I was so scared I couldn't even talk. Couldn't even breathe. I've never done that, in public. I used to put my sister on the seat. So I got over there, got up there, and my dad was sitting right beside me. And I'll never forget, we had this old white-faced cow, canner cow, and he started at $13 a hundred. And I'm going 13, 10, and I get to $14, and I was so nervous I jumped to 15. And he bumped me on the leg. He said, "Son," he said, "you jumped a dollar." I said, "Oh shit," right over the microphone like that. He said, "We don't talk like that around here." But that was my first time of auctioneering. And of course, I went on and did the Denver Stock Show for 4 or 5 years. And Saturday night, he passed away on a Monday, but he had had a stroke and couldn't talk. But the Saturday night before he passed away, he wanted me to auctioneer, and he sat and listened to me for 2 hours that night. So I was always happy that I did that. But he wanted to hear me, but he wouldn't tell you how good you were, but you could tell the way he acted.
Your daddy was so proud of you, Jack. He might have told every single person, he might have not have told you, but he told everybody that would listen how proud he was of you, of every single thing that you ever did.
Well, he tell you how dumb you were in a big hurry, I'll tell you that. He didn't mince no words when you made a mistake. He'd tell you how dumb you were. So
I think a lot of dads do that.
he was one time I'll tell you a little story. We had a horse. I'll never forget that horse called Noble Greer. I was in Omaha. He was in Chicago, and he bought that horse and sent him out to Omaha. So the first day I galloped that horse, boy, he was sore going. So he called me up. He said, "What about that horse?" I said, "Dad, he's sore." "What'd you do to him?" I said, "I didn't do nothing. It's the first day I've had him." I said, "He's sore." So he come to town about a week later, and he said, "We'll work that horse tomorrow morning." I said, "Work him? He's sore." He said, "Stick him in a set of ice boots over his knees for 2 hours, and we'll work him." That horse worked like well, he sent him there for the stake races. He worked in 59 chains at Exarban. So that we're back at the barn. And of course, when we iced the horse, we always cooled him out in cold water bandages. And the horse was walking around the barn and cooling out, and Dad walked up beside me. I told Dad the horse was sore in his shoulders, And his greatest saying was, if you fix what's underneath, the shoulders will be okay. But as he walked by me, one of the best lessons I ever had was he walks by and he said, "Son, did you happen to get that ice up on that horse's shoulders?" I'll never forget that, but he taught me that's the way he teaches things, good lessons.
Now, Jack mentioned he's 79 years old, obviously still making headlines. I mentioned at the top he is sitting at 6,464 wins. He is currently 1 win away from tying and 2 from passing trainer King Leatherbury, who is now ranked 4th on the all-time thoroughbred leader list. So of all the trainers in history, Jack is 1 away from tying to sit at number 4 with 6,465. That's a huge accomplishment.
I got more winners than that, Nancy.
Well, now that is true because both King and Jack trained before the statistician of Equibase was even in existence. So they both had more starts, more wins, more seconds, more earnings. So That is true. You have
Yeah.
more wins, but that's since they have been documented. But that's a major, major
That's
accomplishment.
why I don't have any hair either. I have a lot of slow horses in the meantime.
God.
Well, I was telling you about somebody asked me the other day, how come your horses are running better? I said, I changed my feed program. Oh, really? How come you didn't tell me? It was Ralph Irwin. How you didn't tell me about it? I said, I'm feeding faster horses now. That's why.
Well, speaking of that, you've been around a long, long time. Have you changed your, I mean, a lot's changed. Lasix, I mean, vitamins, supplements, therapies. Have you changed your training style in any way from then to now? What have you adapted with the sign of the times?
Well, I don't change anything. And like all these young fellows that work for me and I've taught, I tell them when they get done working for me, if they can't go train a horse, they're too damn dumb to do anything else. I can tell them that because I tell them everything I do, why I do it, what we're doing. And Nancy, everyone, Billy Mott, Frankie's brothers, all of them, Wayne Catalano, if you go to their barn, they'll be all the, I train like my dad did. And they all do the same as we did. Anyone that's been successful, I've had boys that work for me that they think they're a little smarter than everybody else. They don't get along very good.
Right.
But I haven't changed anything. You have changed some because you don't have the exercise riders that you had back in them days.
Right.
You look out here, these horses going around the track, they're going 90 miles an hour, and I don't train my horse like that. I run an affiliate Omaha one time, Targa, that John Forsythe, who's on Charlie's Angel, I trained for him at Opstein. She was 98 days without a work. I just 2-mile gallop. I learned that from Lasborough with Bull Forbes. He had a horse with speed, and he'd gallop that horse a mile, and then he'd let him go a mile, 155, 156, with that speed up. And I learned that from him. And she went 98 days, and I run her a mile and 1/8. She run head and head with Scarlett's enough and win. So you don't have to work them and go 58, 59 like that. But in some of these horses gallop, before I got on here, I have a horse, the boy that works for me. He does a pretty good job. But I like them to gallop with their head straight and pulling so they're pushing off their rear end, the muscles and stuff. This boy galloped that horse. I just bought him the other day. He's in next Thursday, and he'll win.
There you
And
go.
I didn't like the way he galloped him yesterday. Terrible. And Alex Berzer that's riding for me, the affiliate won by 6.5. I put him on her for 4 days galloping her. She was just, you wouldn't know she's the same horse. In fact, Santana told Berzer that day of the race, he said, watch her. She's goofy. She's goofy. She come in like an old cow. She's happy. We changed her feed, fixed her teeth. And she got, this horse, Alex, got on him this morning and galloped him 2 miles, just as perfect as could be. Yesterday, that boy was kicking him, had his head cocked this way and that way. I told Sammy, I said, but everything I do is the same. In California, I didn't get to do everything because I didn't have no money when I got done. And so you couldn't, I had boys that had been with me a long time. They stuck by my sides.
Now, you had an amazing meet here, and a lot of horses are going off at really big prices.
Well, they got, when I come here, I hadn't won many races, and they thought I was so damn old and I couldn't train anymore.
No, but I mean, that's a testament that you haven't lost anything in your step. I mean, you still got game.
Well, I'm very fortunate. The boy that's with me, Sammy Alvarez, his father worked for me,
I'm glad you mentioned him.
and his 3 brothers and his dad from Mexico brought him there when they were 15 and a half years old, each son. Berto's still on my ranch in California, what I got left. It's in escrow finally, so maybe we'll get it gone. But what the piece that they ended up leaving with me. Mm-hmm. But Alberto's over there. Jesus he runs the farm in Mexico. Epifano was Neil Drysdale's assistant. Sammy come when he was 15 and a half. He rubbed gate dancer. He's been with me 35 years. He shoes the horses. He does everything, takes care of me just like I did my own father. He just is. a blessing. And we do everything. I've taught him to shoe. I've taught him to trim their feet, what to do with them. And you just can't believe when we get these horses, what their feet look like. And this one I told you next Thursday, you'll see that one too.